Hi, I'm Gary Michaels. Welcome to the Turn It Up a Notch show. On this podcast, we're going to talk about anything from politics to sports to motivation to sales to being a better leader, better man, better woman, and anything and everything you do in your life. Before we dive into the origin story of Turn It Up a Notch, I want to take you back to the very beginning and give you my origin story. I feel like in order to really have an appreciation for the show and what we're going to talk about, you need to know me from the inside out. So let's get this party started. So here we are. Some of you may know me as a motivational speaker, a trainer, running a national insurance agency. But to really understand who I am, let's go back to the very beginning. I was born and raised in San Jose, California. I have a brother 2 years younger than me and a sister that we adopted at 2 days old, actually, and is about 20 years younger than me. And growing up, unfortunately, I was in a position going back and forth between my mother and stepfather and my father and stepmother. And really, that was a time of my life that I think I was always trying to get attention, be noticed. It was the first time I believe that I found myself putting extra effort in to all things in life, whether it was sports, whether it was school. I was always a grade ahead in school and in the ELP programs, extra learning programs. And it caused me, I believe, in my future life to always know that there's room for growth. To achieve what you want in life, you've got to put in the work. You've got to be disciplined. Yeah, you've got to be someone that's willing to go the extra effort and pay the price for success. And I now look back at it and often thank my parents for what at the time I thought was selfish on their part. It's something that has absolutely shaped me to the man I am today. And my daughter, Mackenzie, who's just now 17 years old, I didn't have to push her to get her first job. She's been working now as a hostess at a local pizza parlor. And even though there's challenges there, it's really interesting because she sees how hard I work. She doesn't want to leave that job. She wants it to be on her resume. She wants consistency. She wants to stay with it and keep putting in the extra work. And it's funny, as we recently went to a college fair for her, and these college recruiters were talking to her about what she wants to do. And it was all about, I just want to work hard and I want to find a good college where work ethic will pay off. And that just touched my heart to know that what my parents taught me about a strong work ethic and values, my daughter's seeing in me, and that's what I think I'm driven to teach others. I paid my way through college, and I'm so glad that I did. The value that I learned from that hard work ethic and discipline has literally over the years made me millions. And I would never, ever, ever take that back. In 2001, my stepfather passed away. And I told my mother as a kind of a tribute to Al, who was my stepfather, and to her, I'm going to hit $1 million this year. And in our industry, not just in our company, but in our industry, nobody had ever done $1 million in sales in 1 year in the fundraising industry. And it was like I was so locked in and focused that no matter what it was going to take, I was going to do it. It was working sometimes 7 days a week. Sometimes it was driving home from school at the end of the day from the schools, and when there's maybe one car in the parking lot, and I don't even know who that is, and maybe it was a janitor, and the janitor can refer me to the best teacher there, or as the principal that was, I'm thinking, gosh, a car there that late is someone that really cares about the profession and would maybe want to do a fundraiser. Or it was stopping by the bowling alley, and they have junior leagues, or the daycare, or a dance studio, or a karate studio, things that we wouldn't traditionally think about in raising money, and created a vision for that person of, gosh, if we had some extra money, what could we do with it? And on the very last day of the year, which was June 30th, because our calendar years were July 1st to June 30th. I was fortunate enough to fax machines. We don't even fax anymore, really, but fax in a candy bar order that put me at $1,006,006. And I share that with all of you guys today because what would that do for your life if you set some goal that was so far out there that no matter what, you were going to hit it? Okay, and whether it's a year like I did, or it's 6 months or 3 months, but a total focus and dedicating that to someone that you love and care about, so that it's more than just about you. That was a turning point for me in my life. I had done well selling books earlier on when I was in college, but this was a point where I really exceeded, when I started to have confidence and belief in myself that there's a lot more in me than I originally thought I had. And everything's about belief. Everything's about being confident. Everything's about being, and I talk about this a lot, being a sexy buffalo, and we'll talk about that more later. But it was a turning point for me in my life to be able to hit that $1 million, and it was I got an extra $50,000 bonus at National Convention I didn't expect, and then again that work hard, play hard came out in me, that the inner side of me, when we all were at the bar that night, I said drinks on me, and I ended up with a $4,500 alcohol bill because somehow word got out to people that weren't even in our company that drinks are on Gary, and I think that's me. I'm that either and. I can work hard, I can play hard. I can do this and I can do this. And that's the message that I so believe is what we're trying to accomplish here in the Turn It Up a Notch show, is that in all areas of your life, there's gonna be some sacrifice. In all areas of your life, you're gonna have to be willing to give something up to get what you want. I always believe that in life, we always get paid. Sometimes today, sometimes tomorrow, sometimes next week, next month, next year, if you have the right attitude, the right enthusiasm, the right heart, the right skill set, and the right service-minded attitude. After being at the fundraising company for several years, I decided I was going to leave and write that book I told you about and go start a speaking and training company. And the chairman of the company called me and asked me to fly into Nashville and said, we understand you want to leave and go start a speaking and training company. And he said, this has been a goal of ours for many, many, many years, and we'd like you to lead that. And that's what started my speaking career professionally. When our company first started, as I lived in San Jose, our first event, our company was called Success Starts Now, and we saw many of the big name speakers out there: Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn. There were so many of them at the time, and they were all mostly individual speakers. And what we wanted to accomplish and create was a seminar series and a motivational series that focused on growing yourself, turning it up a notch in life, starting it now. That's why we were called Success Starts Now, and not about the personality of one individual speaker, but about the concept and the brand of growing and getting better. And so there were 3 of us originally that were the co-founders of the company, and we had a couple other speakers that spoke. And on our very first event with a bunch of quote unquote nobodies, nobody really knew who we were able to have almost 700 people at our very first event at the Santa Clara Convention Center in 2006. And that started a series of events all over the United States for the next several years. And we put on events in almost every major metropolitan city in the United States. And that eventually evolved into a coaching company where we have hundreds of coaches that coach, we speak, we train, and I've been blessed to speak all over the world due to starting that with just the concept of motivating and training people, and now it's blossomed into something huge. So as our company was continuing to grow, we saw there was much more of a need to putting on seminars all across the country and coaching people one-on-one. We saw there was a need to do individual work with companies. And people started reaching out to us and saying, could you come out, and we have a keynote opportunity for a national convention coming up this summer, or we have 4 times a year a regional meeting, and we need a speaker to come in and teach on these topics. And that was where I raised my hand and I said, I really want to lead that charge with that. And my 2 biggest, I think, focuses in that space. Of course, we worked with all different companies, and I've been blessed to speak all over the world and speak for tons of brand companies that you can see all over my website. And if you do any bit of homework on me, you'll see that I've been in many, many, many different spaces. But the 2 areas where I've done quite a bit of work and touched my heart was in the professional sports space, working with the sales and leadership teams of professional sports, all the way down from the 4 major sports, all the way down to their minor league systems, and also in the franchise space. And I said, I want to break into the professional sports space. But it was a very, very difficult market to break into because people had followed 3 or 4 main speakers, main companies in the professional sports space forever. But I also went back to my roots of good, hard work ethic, of picking up the phone and making calls and introducing yourself. It's just a game of numbers, and it's how you come across, and it's your professionalism and your skill set. And if you do it the right way, you're going to run into a person that's open-minded, and you never know that person on the other end of the phone that's going to pick up the phone and they've had a bad situation or a bad circumstance with the current client that they're working with, or maybe their budgets were cut and now they have money and they're looking for a new opportunity. And one of my very first clients that I ever had that got me thinking how I could break into this sport was the Oakland Raiders. And I remember being in there preparing one day for one of my trainings for their sales and leadership team. And I was in their big film room where they have all the players come and watch to get ready for the Sunday's games. And I was in there preparing, and I turned around and an older gentleman was walking towards me, and I realized it was Al Davis. And I don't get nervous too often. I've spoke all over the world. I've met presidents. Most of my clients are CEOs and presidents of companies, and I don't get nervous, but somehow I was shaking a little bit because Al Davis was walking towards me from everything I'd heard. And he walked up to me. He said, Gary, and I'm going, how does he know my name? Because this was hooked up with their VP of sales. And I go, yeah. And he goes, well, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Al Davis, and I just want to let you know that nothing happens in our building without sales. I've been in sales my whole life, and I really appreciate what you're doing, and we really value what you do for us, and keep doing what you're doing, and do this for other clubs too. Everybody needs good sales training and good leadership training. If you need anything, let me know. And that was a very short conversation, maybe 5 minutes, but the way he looked me in the eye and shook my hand, and it was sincere from the heart, it gave me so much fuel and motivation to say, I'm going to break into this market, because I just love the space. And at first it was because I like sports, but the more I got into it, the more I realized I enjoyed working with people that are driven and go-getters. And to get into professional sports on the sales and leadership side of it is the best of the college kids that work their tail off, just like the ones that are the athletes are the very, 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 very best. To get into professional sports, you usually start in the minor leagues, and you've got to work your way up to get into leadership roles, to work your way up to the big club, to get their interviews where 100 people interview for one job. And let me tell you what a joy and honor it is to work with people that are driven. And let me tell you, it's what I'm doing now in building a national insurance agency. One of my biggest joys is to work with people that are driven, that I don't have to chase, people that I don't have to nudge all the time, and people that I don't have to push across the finish line. It's people that are self-motivated and want to lean in and want to learn. And I think that's where that love started to happen. And so I said, you know what? There's so many professional sports teams. I'm just going to go to work. And I first was able to, because I worked with the Raiders, everything kind of often works by, if you know this person, you get that person. And I lived in the Bay Area, and I met a guy named Paul Epstein, and Paul Epstein and I see eye to eye. Paul's a great guy, and he was one of the leaders with the 49ers, and we got to do some trainings with the 49ers. It didn't hurt that I had season tickets there too, so they at least heard me because he's a loyal customer too. But having the Raiders and Niners underneath my belt, and this is a good lesson for all of you guys, if you want to break into anything, you've got to start somewhere. Okay, you got to get your feet wet somewhere. You got to start. Success starts now, like I was saying earlier. And as we were doing trainings, I was learning some ins and outs from Paul about some things that would be attractive to work with other organizations. And one day I was doing my calls, and I was calling some NHL teams, and as I love hockey, and a guy named Jeff Morander picked up the phone. Wonderful guy. And those of you watching that are involved in sports, if you've had any relationship with Jeff, you can see why I'm saying he's a wonderful guy. And I went through, what I do, and he goes, "I'm listening." Okay, so I'm Gary Michaels. I help professional sports teams and their sales teams and leadership teams be better at what they do and turn it up a notch with their performance. And he goes, "I'm listening." He goes, "Not only do I handle this sort of thing for the Coyotes, but I also, for years, was the person that led the training for the entire NHL." And he goes, "But before I do business with people, I want to meet them." And he goes, "Where do you live?" I go, "I live in Las Vegas." He goes, "Great, we'll be there next week for a ticket convention." And I go, "Okay." And he goes, "I'll make it easy for you. We'll come to the airport and meet you at the airport. And there's a Starbucks at the bottom of the escalator. And why don't you just come meet me and Billy there?" And my wife and I were heading out of town, so that's why we met at the airport. And we spent a half hour, and I built a lifelong friendship with him. And from that, working with professional sports teams, many NFL, Major League Baseball. I did one training for the entire NFL, which was pretty cool. All of the sales team for all the teams together. And one thing that I realized about professional sports is it's all about training to be the very, very best you can be. And if you think about it, that's how it is on the field too. Okay, it's repetition over and over again, and that's just that's been a big part of my life. And about, I would say, a year into working with professional sports, I met a few people, and I actually met somebody recently, Brandon Bryant, that played for the Buffalo Bills. In between, he came back and forth to sports, in and out of sports, and in the meantime, he bought a franchise. And I find that a lot of professional athletes, when they leave the professional sports, they go buy businesses and they start their second careers. And a lot of them were starting their second careers in the franchise space. And I started to look at the franchise space, and I started to think about franchisor-franchisee relationship. For those of you that don't know what that means, franchisor is the person with the concept. It's the person with the big dollars. It's the person that has all the structure, is the corporate end of it, is the branding, is the one that gets the products, et cetera. And then they sell franchises to people that are looking to buy a business that don't want to do everything to build up the business. Everything's turnkey, from the scripts to the logos to the product to everything. The challenge with many franchisors is training their franchisees to be the best they can be. They can train them to learn the product, but the skills of running a successful business, the skills of sales, the skills of recruiting, the skills of time management, the skills of leadership are more often than that franchisor can handle. And I've been blessed to spend 15 years in and out of different franchises, working with franchisees individually, working with franchisors. And it's just like in any company I've been involved in, one of the biggest joys is to see one of your team members walk across the stage at the national convention and win an award. It is so rewarding to see somebody that I've personally worked with in a franchise, okay, go across and walk across the stage, or have a franchisor call me and say, "We're up 32% this year because of the work that we've been doing to grow sales in the business. So speaking and training and coaching is developed over the years, working with just our seminars to working with companies to now we coach thousands and thousands of people all over the world. So there we have it, my life story. We really appreciate you joining our first episode of Turn It Up a Notch. And we have a lot more to bring at you over the next several episodes. If you like what you heard today, go ahead and click the subscribe button there and like it, and join us for our next episode. Until then, turn it up a notch.